Sometimes we have to be in a different position to get through things. Chords do too. Let's talk about inversions. B. B. Let's take a look at an excerpt that uses only root position chords, and in particular, focus on the bass and see how it jumps around, forming this very disjunct line. And now I'm going to use some chord inversions to smooth out this bass line. And since the bass is having a smoother line, it's easier to sing, and it's thought of as much more melodic, which also makes it a lot more interesting. We can also use inversions to take chords that are relatively static and give them a sense of motion. For example, any kind of polka or salsa where you have a sound like this. So the chord is not changing, but I'm moving the bass line to other notes within the chord, and that gives it a sense of forward motion. So let's take a closer look at these chords and name the inversions. We're going to start with the root position chord. I like to also call a snowman chord because we've just got these three notes stacked on top of each other in thirds. If we take the bottom note and move it up one octave, then we're left with first inversion. Then if we take the bottom note again, move that up an octave, that creates second inversion. As we're looking at these chord inversions, let's be very careful to distinguish the difference between the bass note and the root of a chord. The bass is simply the lowest note sounding that's functional. The root of the chord is the lowest note of the chord if the chord is in root position. So in this case, we've got a C major chord. I'm in root position, aka snowman position, and C is the bottom note, so C is the root and C is the bass. If I move into first inversion, the bass is E, and the root is still C. And then in second inversion, the bass, the lowest note, is G, but the root is still C. And we always name these triads according to their roots. Now, how do we distinguish these inversions from each other? Well, we've got a system of names that is super simple, and it's actually drawn from an older system of shorthand that was used many hundreds of years ago called figured bass. And all it is simply measuring the intervals that notes are above a bass note. So for example, in our root position, we have an interval of a fifth above the root and a third above the root. We always measure from the largest interval to the smallest interval. In first inversion, we've got a sixth above the bass and a third above the bass. And in second inversion, we've got a sixth above the bass and a fourth above the bass. Now, just to make this shorthand as efficient as possible, throughout the years we started to develop a set of abbreviations. And that is for root position, because those chords happened so frequently, we left those figures off altogether. So if you saw a chord that doesn't have any extra inversion symbols on it, we assume that it's a root position triad. For first inversion, we start with a sixth and a third above the bass, and in this case, we drop the 3 and just use the number 6. And finally, for second inversion, because this has a sixth and a fourth, to distinguish from the first inversion, we do use both the 6 and the 4. Now, how does this translate into seventh chords? Seventh chords also have a root position if all of the notes are stacked on top of each other in thirds, like a really big snowman. And we also have first inversion, second, third. Since there are 4 notes, we have 4 different positions. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. And as for the inversion symbols drawn from their figured bass, it follows the same pattern as well. So all of the intervals above the bass for the root position are 7, 5, and 3, which is abbreviated as just a 7. For first inversion, we've got a 6, 5th, and 3rd, and the abbreviation is just 6, 5. For second inversion, we've got a 6, a 4th, and a 3rd, and the abbreviation is 4, 3. And then finally, for third inversion, we've got a 6th, 4th, and a 2nd. And the abbreviation for this is 4, 2. Now, a very easy trick to remember these inversion symbols of seventh chords is simply to write 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then we see that our root position is the 7, the first inversion is 6, 5, second inversion is 4, 3, and the third inversion, add the little extra 4, and we're left with the remaining 2.